Thank you for tuning in. My name is Wade Morse, and I'd like to introduce you to the ORAPS project. I'm leading this project with Randy Rosenberger from Oregon State University, with past support from the U.S. Forest Service, Pacific Northwest Research Station, Lee Cerveny in particular. With this current proposal, the project is designed to be run through the Center for the Outdoor Recreation Economy at Oregon State University. The Outdoor Recreation Access and Participation Survey is a cost-efficient, standardized, scientifically rigorous system for collecting and disseminating information on outdoor recreation for U.S. households at the county, state, and national levels. The ORAPS has been designed to support local and statewide outdoor recreation planning through statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plans. However, through standardization of this survey across states, ORAPS will also provide consistent data at regional and national levels. Finally, through longitudinal data collection, the ORAPS will provide trend data at county, state, and national levels. So what is a statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan? Well, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, or LWCF, was established in Congress in 1964 in large part to provide recreation opportunities to all Americans. To qualify for the funds, states must have a current SCORP in place, and that SCORP has to assess the demand and need for outdoor recreation resources. It has to also assure that there is accessibility to all citizens of these opportunities. And you need to understand participation in outdoor recreation and understand that it's there for the health and vitality of the citizens of the United States. As part of this SCORP, states have to develop an open project selection process, or OPSP, and that's a measurable scoring and ranking framework to establish priorities for the allocation of funds for local park and trail projects. Who can apply for these? Well, state agencies, local units of government, so cities, counties, park districts, and federally recognized tribes. SCORP requires public input to understand that access and demand for outdoor recreation. However, there is no standardized methodologies that all states have to apply. That lack of standardization, however, has caused some problems, with every state collecting their demand data using different questions and different methodologies. That results in limited consistency in sampling and questions over time, incomplete and incompatible data that cannot be compared across states or over time for trend analysis, redundancies and cost inefficiencies in data collection, limited insight into rural, regional, or community recreation needs, inconsistent assessment of recreation barriers and opportunities, and the result is that it has very limited utility for regional or national assessment. To begin, I wanted to provide a quick introduction to the scale of this project. The very first base draft of this survey came from a CDC project in Alabama looking at physical activity and health in rural communities over a decade ago. Since then, we've done 2 other U.S. Forest Service projects. We've hosted a number of different presentations and organized sessions at national academic conferences. We've participated in SCORP University, where we work with different states on training them on how to apply the ORAPS as part of their state SCORP, and we've also listened and got a lot of great feedback from the different states. We've actually run the ORAPS as part of the Oregon and Vermont official SCORPs. We also had an expert technical review where 12 individuals from agencies and 12 academic members reviewed and helped us revise the survey. And since that revision, we've then implemented the ORAPS in the Alabama SCORP. The ORAPS has its foundation in the recreation experience model, where recreationists are motivated to participate in an activity in a specific setting to achieve different benefits and outcomes. And while our recreation management models have advanced beyond an activity focus to include experiential, benefits-based, and now outcomes-focused management, much of our systematic data collection has remained focused on activity participation rates. While understanding participation is necessary, it is not sufficient to help us identify actionable projects that can influence participation. We have developed a more complete theoretical framework, filling out the details on the original model and adding access constraints and needs facilitators to the framework for data collection. These items precede activity participation. Access constraints and facilitators are the areas where managers and communities can actually intervene to influence participation. We have used our theoretical framework to drive our question modules for the ORAPS. I will next go through and briefly explain each module with example question items. Our first module is access. This is largely a function of distance. We identify what types of sites you have close to your home. We also examine recreation home range, or what distances start to limit your frequent participation. And this is based on that idea of a visitation decay function. In other words, the further something is, the less frequently you're going to access it. And this is important because one of those LWCF goals are ensuring opportunities for and benefits from outdoor recreation and making them available to everyone. For recreation access, we ask about recreation settings within a half-mile or a 10-minute walk of your home. This is consistent with ParkScore and other research on the topic. We ask about things like parks and playgrounds, dirt paths or nature trails, public school facilities, swimming pools, or even bike lanes. However, we also note that people frequently drive to recreation areas. To identify someone's recreation home range, we also ask them to define the boundaries of their recreation community. We ask approximately how many minutes of driving time in a personal vehicle from your household would be the farthest you would consider to still be inside your community for frequent outdoor recreation activity participation. Because our distance question is a bit novel, I wanted to share some of the Alabama data. We broke the first category into 5-minute segments so that we could evaluate those most constrained by distance. However, when grouped at 10-minute intervals, you can clearly see that as distance driving increases, the percentage of the population who consider that inside the recreation community decreases, as would be expected with the visitation decay model. What is interesting is that now we have data for targeting LWCF projects based on the distance different groups are willing to drive. So our next module is motivations. These are the reasons that we recreate, the outcomes we are hoping to achieve. We go to relax and recharge, to be with our friends, and for thrill and excitement. Understanding motivations helps us to plan the types of settings conducive to those experiences. And we had 21 items on the motivation scale. Our next question module is on constraints. Constraints are the factors that inhibit or limit people from recreating as much as they desire. There's several kinds of constraints that we ask about. The intrapersonal are those things within ourselves, such as the lack of skills. Interpersonal, so related to other people, such as crowding, like the image on this slide. Or structural, those are physical items, so perhaps there's no opportunities nearby for you to recreate or do the activity you want to do. And finally, we have environmental constraints, and those are anything in the natural conditions, such as fire danger or too much heat. So a few examples of the structural constraints from the survey. It's not safe to access recreation areas without a car from my home or residence. There's a lack of transportation to visit areas for recreation, or the recreation areas where I live are not properly maintained. Each of these can limit our participation. Our next question module is on needs and facilitators. These are the facilities, infrastructure, programs, information that managers and communities can provide to facilitate participation in outdoor recreation. These are really important for the SCORP. They are the projects that the LWCF often funds. They can be used to rank projects for the OPSP of the SCORP. The question we ask is, please indicate the level of priority. For example, investing time, energy, and/or funding that leaders and managers should give to support the following, in this case, recreation programs. So here are some examples of the specific items that we had under programs. For example, programs designed for accessibility, interpretation and educational programming, arts and crafts, or even outdoor skill training. And you can use these scores on priority for your ranking in the OPSP of a SCORP. I have a few more examples of the needs and facilitators because of their importance for prioritizing LWCF projects. Clean restrooms, that makes the #1 spot on almost every survey you see out there, but also secure parking, officers, law enforcement, or security in uniform, and then for specific places like public pools and water parks or nature and wildlife viewing areas. Our next module is probably the largest module. It's activity participation, and we have 2 questions for each activity. Please indicate the number of days or any portion of day that you participated in the activity inside your recreation community in the last 12 months, and we use the size of the community that they defined earlier in the survey. And then the second question is, how many days did you do it outside your recreation community? So asking 2 questions for each of the 80 activities could get very burdensome. So we grouped activities really for efficiency. And here on the left, you can see the winter and snow activities. Basically, you go down and click on the ones that you did do, or you click, no, I didn't do any of these. Same thing with biking on the right and wheeled activities. And if you didn't do any, you just skip to the next block. If you did do one of them, then it asks those 2 questions, but only for that one specific activity. And across our 3 states, the average number of different activities that people did was between 10 and 15. So this isn't quite as burdensome as it might seem when we're asking about all 80 activities. Our next module is on benefits. And first, we're going to look at the economics. We use the travel cost method for their most recent out-of-town trip. This is consistent with federal best practices. The data we have can be provided to the Bureau of Economic Analysis to their outdoor recreation satellite account that you see here on the screen. And it'll contribute to the understanding of outdoor recreation impact at the county block, state, and national level. So getting better data than just state data is one of our goals. It'll also contribute to the recreation use values database maintained here at Oregon State University. The other benefit that we specifically address is on health and well-being. The Outdoor Recreation Roundtable has a huge initiative right now, a big push on linking health and outdoor recreation. The National Governors Association also just released a policy brief on outdoor recreation and public health, and the ORAPS can address a number of these issues that they're bringing up. The policy brief from the National Governors Association specifically calls out the Oregon Recreation Health Impacts Estimator tool that's run through the Center for the Outdoor Recreation Economy at Oregon State University. The ORAPS contributes data specifically designed for that tool. But you can also find health items throughout the rest of the ORAPS. In motivations, we have a number of mental and physical health items. In the constraints and facilitators, we find both the health and accessibility related items throughout. The activity focus collects data on moderate to vigorous intensity activities for the health estimator tool. Time in nature is another big piece contributing to our mental and physical health. And then we gather the demographics as well that can help us understand the different accessibility needs at the household level. Given the very well-documented benefits of spending time in nature, we have included an existing question set to identify where people go in nature and for how long during a given week. Each of the ORAPS modules can link the ORAPS directly to the SCORP and can help states set priorities for their LWCF funding. The access and home range identifies spatially underserved areas. Motivation justifies facility selection and setting design. It strengthens the narrative. The constraints identifies barriers to overcome with proposed projects. The facilitators identifies and prioritizes those specific project investments. Activity participation prioritizes projects with strong demand. The benefits, the economic benefits, support administrative buy-in, strengthens the narrative, and identifies gateway and community impacts. The health benefit aligns the health and recreation priorities. It also brings in additional collaborators from the health industry. And the demographics identifies underserved areas and populations that would need more of these projects. So once we gather the data, what are we doing with it? Well, first, standardized LWCF formatted reports will be produced for each state and territory, so 56 reports. Once we get longitudinal data, trend analysis will also be provided. Reports for local jurisdictions or county blocks will provide essential demand-side data support for LWCF applications, especially for low-resource, underserved, or rural communities. Additionally, we intend to make all the data publicly available. It'll be made freely available through coordinating research centers, federal and state agencies, and collaborating party platforms. The return on the investment of the ORAPS data should be enormous. The data partners will use their own resources to conduct analysis and deliver reports. So who are those data partners and users that are going to amplify the impact of this data set? Well, first, any federal, state, and local park, land, and water management agency that works in outdoor recreation, so whether it's the Park Service, Forest Service, BLM, or any of the state equivalents of those, but also all the health agencies at both the national and state level. Governors, state parks, natural resource agencies, any Office of Outdoor Recreation, Community Chamber of Commerce, tourism entities, outdoor recreation industry, military veterans, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, the outdoor industry, and any others such as researchers, nonprofit organizations, associations, including university faculty and graduate students can all use this data and put out reports, all of this contributing to our greater understanding of outdoor recreation. So the return on investment of this initial data set by providing it free to all these users should be enormous. So how do we get there? What is our road to implementation? So first, it's going to be based out of the Center for the Outdoor Recreation Economy at Oregon State University. We have two planned stages. The first stage, which we have our proposal in for, is an initial 50-state survey, plus the DC and the 5 U.S. territories, to provide baseline national data representative at the state level. Stage 2 will be a rotating 5-year cycle collecting county block level data in 10 states and 1 U.S. territory per year, and I'll outline each of these here in the next 2 slides. Stage 1 of the ORAPS is a 3-year project to develop a rigorous and consistent data set for all 50 states and territories. We plan intensive sampling for representative state-level data. Since it's consistent across states, it also provides excellent national data, gathering nearly 60,000 responses. The baseline becomes the starting point to monitor trends across all ORAPS modules. It provides an in-depth data for states and consistent national data for comparison across states, regions, and nationally. As titled, it becomes the baseline for all future assessment. After completion of the 3-year baseline stage, we propose a 5-year cycle trend analysis with county block level sampling. You would do 10 states and 1 territory per year on rotation. The 5-year rotation will be timed to coincide with state SCORP requirements for new plans or 5-year updates. It is also similar to the retired National Survey of Recreation and the Environment that was run in various forms from 1962 to 2014. LWCF projects are local. On the screen, you can see projects near Auburn, Alabama. All of these are in local communities. Therefore, sub-state level data is preferred for prioritizing these local projects going forward. However, a representative sample of all 67 counties in Alabama could be cost prohibitive. Therefore, we suggest that blocks of counties can be developed using urban-rural indicators and medium income or other items that have been shown to influence recreation participation. One example with grouping Alabama's 67 counties into 14 recreation analysis regions is shown. Representative data at this scale enables targeted allocation of LWCF funds, prioritizes community needs, and supports rural economic development. It also provides the longitudinal data to measure the success of the LWCF program. For example, if trails are rated as a high priority item, a project is implemented, we should be able to identify increased trail use and lower priority on trails in the next 5-year survey. Finally, maintaining this rotation long-term will ensure that high-quality and local recreation data and trends will be available for SCORP planning and targeted LWCF projects. Another benefit of both the baseline and the 5-year rotation of ORAPS is that they provide much of the data identified in the EXPLORE Act. In 2025, Congress unanimously passed the EXPLORE Act, which requires outdoor recreation information on barriers or constraints, needs and facilitators, health and economic benefits, and long-term activity participation trends. We've gone over how the ORAPS collects all that data already. It gathers that demand-side information for SCORP and for the EXPLORE Act, creating this cross-program efficiency. States and federal agencies could use the data to meet the EXPLORE Act goals. The figure here shows how the ORAPS contributes to linking supply and demand for outdoor recreation. The ORAPS is in the yellow. It shows how it gathers that county level data, which then contributes to the state SCORP, which is in blue. It also shows how socioeconomic and health data at that county level can be linked with that recreation demand. And on the bottom, it shows how protected areas and the supply of outdoor recreation come together with the ORAPS and the socioeconomic data to look at supply and demand of outdoor recreation. We have proposed that this program be run through the Center for the Outdoor Recreation Economy at Oregon State University. We have worked with and received input from individuals in a number of these agencies and organizations and see collaboration with all of them as critical. We envision building a coalition of data partners and users who can significantly increase the return on investment of ORAPS data. A public-private partnership with federal and state recreation and health agencies, the outdoor recreation and health industries, nonprofits, and other organizations to collaborate on the collection, distribution, and/or use of ORAPS data. In conclusion, we believe that the ORAPS data will significantly improve our national understanding of outdoor recreation, all while providing states and local jurisdictions with better information for planning their outdoor recreation investments. Thank you for your time and interest in the ORAPS project. Please feel free to contact myself or Dr. Rosenberger if you have any questions or would like to become involved in the project going forward. Thank you.